Perhaps like me, you also wake up with your smartphone as an alarm. And maybe you've had a day where it buzzes and you're like, I can't believe it's that time already. So instead of jumping out of bed, you kind of reach over and you hit that snooze button. And maybe you've done that more than just once, maybe 2, 3, 4 times. And then you know, okay, this is going to be a rushed morning. So there's no bathroom pampering. You jump out, you rush out the front door. If you're lucky, you've got coffee to go for breakfast. You do the white knuckle thing as you're commuting or driving. Inevitably, you get to your first meeting, and that meeting runs over time, and you're assaulted by WhatsApps and emails and SMSs and calls and crisis at the office and difficult colleagues, and maybe there's issues with the commuting, so you're running late or you're in a traffic jam. And the first time you get a chance to look at your watch and breathe, you realize it's almost 3 in the afternoon and you've had nothing to eat except maybe a handful of biscuits in between a few cups of coffee. And I don't know about you, but I see that kind of scenario happening quite often. And maybe you can resonate with the whole picture or parts of it. The skipping breakfast, maybe too much coffee, not enough water in the day, no time to really have a proper lunch, no snacking in between. And then what happens is once you face the commute back home and you walk through the front door, perhaps your knuckles dragging on the ground, and you finally relax. Maybe you have a glass of wine, which becomes 2 or 3, and then you end up eating your biggest meal quite late in the day, just before you're about to go to bed and sleep. I see that a lot. And if you think about traveling somewhere on a long trip, so last week I was driving up from Cowley to Manchester, and it was a really long journey. And in fact, somebody had told me it would take 2 hours. But unfortunately, because of the roadworks along the way, just outside of Birmingham, it took me 4.5 hours. Now, what happened on that trip was I could feel that my blood sugar started to drop because it had been hours since I'd eaten. I had lunch, I left straight after the performance chemistry workshop that I delivered, and then I was stuck on the road. But fortunately, I was able to have what I call a strategic snack, because in the car with me, I had some dried fruit that I'd bought at the grocery store the day before and some flavored seeds. Granted, it's not the most exciting meal to have, but better to have that. And I managed to lift my blood sugar, which is our petrol, and I was able to sustain my energy. So when I arrived at my destination, I could at least greet my client with a smile rather than being irritable, because what happens when our blood sugar, when our petrol drops, is the front of the brain is one of the first organs that gets affected. So the prefrontal cortex, that is where executive function sits. And our executive function is quite important. It's the ability to solve problems, to think creatively, to focus and to remember things. Your brain tends to not do those things well when your blood sugar drops. Maybe you're a parent. Perhaps you've got kids that go to school. I am sure that you fight with them to eat breakfast, because you understand as their parents that when children eat a healthy breakfast, they are able to focus, to remember, to problem solve, to think and concentrate longer. Now, sometimes as adults, we forget that we are like our children. We have this 4-pound universe that sits on top of our shoulders that needs to be fueled correctly and strategically. So thinking about how you feel and how you balance your blood sugar, your glucose, is really important. We know that one of the fundamental steps towards managing your energy and your performance and your health is to keep your blood sugar levels, your blood glucose, as constant as possible. Because when there's a lot of fluctuation, so when you skip meals or when you eat and drink the wrong things, or when you only have a big meal late in the day just before you're going to go to bed, that is not going to keep your blood glucose balanced. And what happens when it drops is that you feel hungry, you feel irritable, your brain doesn't function as well, and also the opposite. When your blood glucose goes really high, that is not good either, because too much blood sugar, we know, puts you at risk of diabetes and other conditions. So your body will try and regulate it. And the way it does that is to produce hormones like insulin from your pancreas. Now, it would be okay if you had a little bit of insulin in your system on occasion. It is not okay when you have waves of insulin 4 or 5 times a day, because you only have a certain amount of insulin. So that is why we see over a period of years of eating badly, people can develop diabetes, which is when your insulin just stops or it no longer works correctly. But also when you have lots of insulin in your system and you're feeling stressed, so you've got some cortisol in your system, which is a stress hormone, that combination of insulin and cortisol and erratic blood glucose or blood sugar is a recipe for disaster. It turns you into a lean, mean storage machine, which means you store weight really easily. And where do you store the weight? Maybe you've guessed it, around your gut, around your waistline. And we know that if you're carrying extra weight around your waist, that it puts you at a much higher risk of diabetes, heart disease, hypertension, and other lifestyle diseases. So strategic refueling is about understanding how you need to try and keep your blood glucose, your petrol tank, within quite constant mode. So not too low, not too high. And in the next video, we're going to take a look at exactly how you can make strategic refueling practical and how to choose the right kind of things to make sure that you're having strategic snacks to help balance your blood glucose with all the benefits that come with that.